Trigger warning. This episode speaks about death and dying.
Hello, 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 my lovely, lovely listeners and viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube. Welcome to the next Breath of Life conversations. I'm so happy that you're here. Today, today we're talking about death, because why not? Um, why did I want to talk about this? I wanted to talk about this because not that it's like necessarily coming up a lot in my life, strangely. Usually I like pick these topics because of like what's going on or like what I find as like interesting. And I do find death interesting, but not necessarily in like the way you may think. It's not like I have this like weird fascination with death or that I am like necessarily seeing it all the time. Although as a nurse and as an aide, I saw death a lot. So like there was a period of time when I was working as an aide, as a CNA, where I was working in this long-term care facility, and probably for like a month straight, I was working every single time a resident passed away. Like for a solid month, month and a half. Every single time somebody was going to die, I was working. And I got into this r really interesting flow where I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew exactly what I needed. So like I had all of the supplies like ready. Like I was there. I was present. And then I I was like I finished nursing school and I started working in the hospital, and like death is a part of life there, and then became a professional intuitive, and then you're talking to people who have passed on. You're I've always been a person who could see people who have passed on. So like my one of my earliest memories of like seeing a soul that has passed on was actually my own grandmother, my mom's mom. And she had passed when I was like 6 and I was, I think, 8 or 9. And I had my first like near death experience. And yeah, I did say first because I've had a couple. Um, it's the mark of an intuitive, guys. If you have had a near-death experience or two or three, it's you're in touch. You're in touch. Your stuff is activated. Um, but I was like in the midst of my near-death experience, and my grandmother appeared and she told me everything was going to be okay. And everything was. So, um death is something that I am very logical about, ultimately. I see it as a part of life. I do not see it as something to be feared. I do not see it as something that we need to try to avoid, which, let me just say, is a key component of American society and a lot of human society, like globally. But if we're talking about America, which I feel like I can speak to that with some authority because I live here. I've always lived here. Is that Americans in general are afraid of death for a multitude of reasons. They feel like they haven't fulfilled their reasoning for being here. They haven't completed their purpose. They're afraid of what what's next. Like they're afraid of the judgment that they assume is going to be waiting on the other side, and they are afraid of the pain that it's going to take in order for them to get there. Like a lot of people I've actually found in working as an intuitive aren't actually afraid of death in and of itself. They're not afraid of the ending that they think it might be. They're actually afraid of the pain that they may experience in order to get to that next. And when I learned that, I was like, Wow, that's really interesting. That's super interesting. That it's not actually it's not actually the outcome, it's the process that they can't agree with, which I also find really interesting because you'd think then with that being the primary like or the majority reason for why people don't like death, that we would have more legislation around like euthanasia, and assisted suicides because you would you would be alleviating that. And yet we don't. Instead, what we have done, instead of creating legislation and creating pathways where the process can be as painless and as graceful as possible and as dignified as possible and as compassionate as possible, what we've done as a society is we've just said, no, no death. We're just not going to do that. We're just not going to do that. That's not our thing. That's not our vibe. And so we do everything we can to stave it off. We don't age gracefully anymore. We pump ourselves full of chemicals and fillers, and we try to take every supplement on the market. We try to make ourselves as resistant to death as possible. And as resistant to anything that could get us there. So, as resistant to injury as possible. I find it really, really fascinating. And at the same time, another very interesting conundrum that I see happening is that while people are so focused on staying as far away from death as possible, what they're also trying to do simultaneously in this country is get to as natural as possible, which is just the biggest oxymoron. Like, if you're wanting to get to as natural as possible, you're going to get as close to death as possible because death is a part of that cycle. It's not separate from it. It is literally a part of the circle. At the end of the circle comes death, which brings about new life. There's no way to separate them. So by saying that you don't want to deal with vaccines anymore, those individuals that say, I don't want vaccines. Vaccines are terrible. They're poison. I'm not even going to get into the like science of how inaccurate some of those claims are. That's a whole other podcast. But what I am going to say is like, okay, so fine, you never take another vaccine ever. But then that means that you're putting yourself into the category of somebody who then should be realizing that there may come a virus or a bacteria that your system can't fight and therefore you die, right? If you say you don't want any more medications anymore, once again, you're saying you're not going to utilize things that could stave off death and you're relying on your body. What does one's body do? It is born and then it grows and then it fades and then it dies. The other thing that I think goes along in the same trajectory of how we are trying to move ourselves as far away from death as possible is that we won't even say the word. Guys, I there will be, you guys have already heard or read the uh trigger warning at the beginning of this, but like I'm not shying away from the words dead, death, dying. I am number one, I'm a millennial and like I don't believe in like there being some sort of a stigma around those words. I am not the person that is going to be talking about suicide saying unalived. I mean, they're the same thing. And so, like, do what you want. And if it's triggering for you, I'm sorry, but like, know ahead of time, like, there's why there was the trigger warning on there that, like, I'm not going to shy away from that. We need to stop putting like trying to distance this. We need to be understanding these processes. We need to be addressing mental health. We need to be addressing how we make this once again a part of life. And once again, because it's never been devoid. You can never devoid it. We are trying. That's the thing that I find really interesting, is that ultimately, like, what we're doing is we're trying and we're failing utterly as a country, as a national society, as a global society. You cannot actually separate. There is no, well, these people don't die and these people do. It's just not even a thing. And like the separation that happens, I get, because it's uncomfortable. It's super uncomfortable to have to think about a world where you or somebody you love doesn't exist. I know that that's super uncomfortable. I know it's also there's a lot of tragedy that can be associated with death. We've spent our lives, like, as a human race, being very, very painful, like very traumatic, right? The wars, the genocide, the famine, the disease, like all of that. I get it is super traumatizing. And so I get the inclination that a human would have to try to distance themselves from death, from an ending of any kind. I get it. But what I also know to be true is that we have to get over it. We have to get over ourselves. We have to stop trying to make the ending not be the ending. We have to stop trying to glorify living until eternity. That's not something that we need to glorify. And as a person who works in the ER, one of the saddest things that I ever see, one of the saddest things I ever see, is when a person is elderly. They're really sick. Not pretty sick. They're really sick. And we ask the question, do you have an advance directive? Now, I want to be clear about who we're asking this to. We're asking this to the patient who's 85, 95, 105 years old. And we say, have you made the decision of your own free will to write down what your wishes are come the end of your life? When your heart stops, when you stop breathing, what is it that you'd like for us to do? Would you like us to bring you back, or try to keep you alive, or would you like us to let you go as peacefully and as painlessly as possible? And when they say, yes, I have written that down, I do have this piece of paper, it's in your system, to then when the moment comes that we're trying to honor those choices, the family members, the daughter, the son, the granddaughter, the grandson, step in and they say, you do everything you can. It's the most insane moment that I have ever experienced as a nurse, and I've experienced it so many times. It hurts my heart. It hurts my spirit. It destroys me. Every single time that I hear it, I want to cry. I want to scream. I want to rage against the world. I want to be like, how dare you? It is the most selfish thing, apart from, I have like thoughts of like things that are like also like super uber selfish. And this is like one of those things that I feel is one of the most selfish things that a person can do, because you're not thinking about them. You're not thinking about them. You're not thinking about their quality of life. You would rather them be in pain. You would rather me inflict pain on it. That's the other thing. You're like making me need to be a sadist, which, like, I wish that there were laws against this, guys. I truly do. There should be laws against somebody else forcing me to become a sadist, all because they're being selfish. Because if you don't know what it actually takes to perform CPR, what it does to the body, you should not even get a say. If you do not understand what it's like to perform CPR on a 95-year-old who has lived their life, that has raised their children, that has seen the world or not seen the world. Honestly, like it's their choice. They have lived to 95 years old. The son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, they should not be able to go against that individual's wishes, and yet it happens every single day. Every single day. And it's all because they're so afraid of death that they project that fear onto somebody else. This is not the patient saying in their quote unquote final moments, I changed my mind. No, no, these are individuals who simply cannot tolerate the idea of death. We need to do a better job. We need to do a better job at talking about it, of explaining it, of not necessarily interacting with it because that sounds weird, but like interacting with the idea. What is it that we need to do in order to be able to be prepped so that when our loved ones pass away or when our bodies are no longer operating at optimal level of functionality, that that we've got things in order. I mean, we don't talk about that. And I will tell you, like, if you guys are wondering, like, well, Abigail, you're making all of these statements. Maybe you're even saying that I'm being judgmental about all these other people. Well, what about you? I absolutely 100% do not want to be resuscitated after a certain point. In fact, I'm fine if nobody resuscitates me. Because I don't have an advance directive like a will, or something that says like in the case of like a medical emergency, like technically according to legal laws, if a medical provider like came, like saw my heart stop or found my heart stopped, they would have to perform CPR. I wouldn't be upset about it. It's my bad that I don't have an advance directive. I really need to get one. Because I'm not worried about dying early. I really am not. If my heart were to stop right now in this podcast, I would be completely okay. I have done what I have set out to do. I've figured out how to change like healthcare. Now, is there still stuff that I need to do? Yeah, absolutely. So do I prefer not to right now? Yeah. And am I worried about it? No. I know what's on the other side. I know what's out there. I know what happens. I know where I need to go. I know where the debrief is. I know who I'm going to talk to first. I know who I'm going to run into first. I know all of those things. And this is not me in this grit. I am not that person that sits and goes, I will leave this body and I will go to the pearly gates and I will stand in front of Michael and God and I will have to be judged. No, that's the Christian view, and if the Christian view works for you, great, but I don't believe that. There is something else that happens, and all of these things, souls are eternal, like, and you get multiple chances, and all these things. Um, so I'm not worried about that, but I also know roughly when I'm going to go, and it's not going to be for a long time. You guys are stuck with me for quite a while. Okay. Okay. So no worries. But I also very much have had this conversation with even like my parent. My mom and I frequently have this conversation and have had this conversation since I was about 13, if not younger. My mom has always been very much of the opinion. She has embodied the ideal that many African tribes subscribe to. That it is her job to prepare me for a life where she is not. And I have always been so incredibly grateful to her for doing that and for making the idea of a life where she no longer is a part of it something that I do not fear. Will it be sad? Yeah, of course. Like she birthed me. She's been my cheerleader. She's been my business partner. She's been everything, right? Like she's she's been the person who has pushed me and challenged me and also supported me and been my safe harbor. Like, yeah, it'll be sad, 100%. Absolutely, without question. There will be tears, copious amounts of tears. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, she has prepared me. She has never failed me in being a parent. She has 100% taught me what it is that I need to know and the skills I need in order to be able to be in a world where she is not in any physical corporeal form. And this is what I tell my friends who are parents. You need to look at you need to look at what it is that being a parent as something more than just raising your kids to be good human beings. In that, you also need to teach them how to live in a world without you. Because if you haven't taught them how to live in a world without you, you have failed. Sorry, I know that might be harsh. And as a person without children, I'm sure that you're even doubly pissed off by that. It's like doubly triggering for you. But as a person who has taken it upon herself to be one of the primary caregivers of my nephew, you best believe damn straight that I am teaching him, I am helping him to understand what it is to be in a world where I am not in it. Once again, it's not going to be for a long time, but still, like, that is a part of my job that I have decided to be a steward of his soul. That, yes, absolutely, that is a part of it. And if you are not making that and making an effort to have those discussions, to have that conversation of what that looks like, about how they move in a world where you are no longer like that is so pivotal. And there's not enough people having that conversation. And it's one of the reasons why they're so distressed by the thought of death and the thought of dying. So really get comfortable. Like start investigating this. Start talking about it in your mind. Start journaling about it. Not to be morbid. Not to be morbid. Guys, this is once again, it's not this weird, like almost like serial killery kind of like thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about practical, rational, logical understanding of what happens in life. Figure it out. Figure it out, investigate it. And if you need somebody to like have this very like logical conversation, I'm your girl. I'm your girl. Not only do I have the expertise of a decade's worth of like watching the human process happen and understanding like what do you need to understand about the end of life process, guys. It's as I'm sitting here having this discussion, the thing that I have, like, the thing that I'm realizing is like how good at the end of life process I am. Like, let me tell you the story. So, like, I already mentioned that while I was working as a certified nursing assistant, that there was a period of time where I was basically like around for a lot of deaths. But even after that, like, I, a- after I decided to leave the long-term care facility, I ended up working as an in-home health aide. And I was a couple of clients that I ended up having, one that became very near and dear to me, that basically became family to me, ended up going through the death process. And I was there for it. I was there for every second of it. And to to help that individual, to help that body, to help that spirit and soul go through that process was such an honor and a privilege. And I always remember doing very specific things. One, I help remind them that they're not alone. That they're not alone in this part of it, but that they're not going to be alone on the other part of it. That they're leaving my company and going into the company of someone else. That's the first thing that I do. The second thing is reminding them that it's okay that they are leaving this body. So whether it's one final contact with me holding their hand saying it's okay, one of the things that I really like remember doing a lot was placing one of my clients. She's so dear to me that I call her my sister, putting my sister's hand on my chest and like helping her body to modulate to my body and allowing my body to basically slow down so that hers could slow down, so that it was less painful, more connected. That I basically then like felt her body going and feeling what that feels like to feel a body letting go and kind of slipping away. Um, and then afterward, when their spirit is like hovering just above their body, and I'm seeing it and I'm hearing them and I'm telling them it's okay. It's okay. I know this may be jarring for you, but like you can move on. Follow the light, go to the next place, go to your guides, go to God. Um, and then taking care of the physical body afterward, wiping it down, washing it down, putting lotion on as like a final as like a final gift, as a final privilege, getting them dressed in something easy, covering their body and making sure that they're in a position of dignity. Like, these are all things that have really helped me to be in a much better mind state than most people are in society, certainly in a level of comfortability with the passing on that people don't get to have. I would say for as much as it's not an easy thing. And, it's interesting. I was having this conversation with a couple of colleagues last night while I was at work about how um, I worked through COVID and how when COVID started, I could count on two or three hands how many people I had seen die. And within a couple of months, that number doubled and tripled easily because of COVID. And that we didn't know what it was and we didn't know how to stop it and we didn't know how to treat it. And so when you don't know those things, there's really nothing that you can do except for help the transitioning process. So you get good at it. You get good at being in a state where emotionally you can process it. You get good. If I should say this with like a caveat, you get good at it if it's something that you're meant to get good at. Okay, so not everybody got good at it. Some people got really, really thoroughly burned out. They like couldn't handle it, so they left the bedside. But like you learn how to process. You learn how to find the in between space, not separating yourself from it. That's the thing. Like you'll ruin yourself if you try to separate yourself from it. And that's what I'm seeing out in the world. Is like people are trying to separate themselves from this very natural process. You can't. You can't. And when you try to, you wreck yourself. You wreck yourself. You wreck your body. You wreck your mind. You wreck your spirit, your energy. You cannot do that. So if you take nothing else away from this conversation, I really hope what you do take away from it is that one, it's not a dirty word. Death, dying, not a dirty word. It's something that you need to getting acquainted sounds weird, but like truly you need to investigate this understanding. You need to investigate it. You need to have an understanding of it. You need to find your understanding of it. You need to find like where you can stop fearing it. I like the Harry Potter story of the Deathly Hallows, where like the guy had like the invisibility cloak. And while it may seem like that is kind of the antithesis of what I've been talking about, where this, guy had this invisible cloak that hid him from death. The thing is, like, at the part where I actually like it is where he's like, when he was old and he was like ready, he took off the cloak and he greeted death like an old friend. And that to me is like what we should all be doing. Like we shouldn't be I don't agree with hiding from death. That's not what I'm saying with that example, but what I am saying is that we should get to a place where when it is our time, we are not fighting it tooth and nail. And so, I understand living your life as healthfully as possible. I promote that. I teach that. I teach people how to achieve higher, more stable energy levels. I teach people how to have optimal level of functionality in their body at every age. I don't want people to leave this life feeling unfulfilled. What I teach is how to have a body that can support you and doesn't fail you so that when you get to choose to, like when you're like, all right, I've lived my life, you get to make that choice. You get to sit in that choice. You get to be in that choice and you get to be happy that your life was the way that you decided for it to be so that you can greet death like an old friend, so that you can go with dignity and with grace, so that you can not be fighting getting older. That every decade of your life, your body was at its peak condition, not with the intention of never dying. That's the thing that I am very, very, very clear about, or at least I try to be clear about, is that while I am teaching you to have this very incredible high level of functionality, it's not with the intention that you're never going to die. It's so that you can have a better understanding of the process and about the continuation of life after death. It's the continuation of the journey. It's that you can understand that you have completed this part of the journey and now it's time to move on to the next one. There's no reason to be sad. There's no reason to be afraid. There's no reason to try to stave it off. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Truly. I'd love to hear, is this something that you're worried about? Is death something that you're trying to stave off? Are you the person that is like, I just don't know what's on the other side and because I don't know, I cannot do this. I can't even really think about it. This is probably, yeah, I'd love to know if this is the first time in a long time or ever that you have ever even like considered this sort of conversation. Like, let me know in the comments. Let me know in my DMs. Let me know what you think about this conversation. And guys, at the end of the day, what I want to leave you with here is that there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. You can actually like plan this out. You can actually make this process a very dignified one. You can make it a very graceful one. You can make it a very painless one. There are things in place and we should be doing that. We should be talking about that. We should be talking to our loved ones about what it looks like after they're gone. We should be learning from them now because whether we want them to or not, one day they will be gone. We should be spending time with the people that we love and that we should be never taking any moment for granted. We should be learning and spending time and having really amazing, heartfelt, hard conversations and moments. We should be living. Live your life. Live your life. Don't be afraid to live it. If you look at your life right now and you're like, dude, what have I been doing? I need you to like get up right now and I need you to start making choices. I need you to start making choices that are going to propel you into a life that you can one day close your eyes and smile saying, I did that shit. I have nothing to regret. The people I needed to say I love you to, I said I love you to them. The people I needed to spend time with, I spent time with them. The lessons that I needed to learn, I didn't run away from them. I attacked them head on. I learned them. I experienced things. I wasn't afraid. And even if I was afraid, I didn't let that fear stop me. So that when you get to the next phase, when you get to the end of that circle and about to start the rebirth process, you don't run away from it. You don't run kicking and screaming. You address it head on, and you accept it, and you are ready. You're ready because you can be ready for that. It doesn't have to be this, situation that's fraught with anxiety and frustration and all of that. It doesn't have to be. So even though has been a topic about death, ultimately what I feel like is that this is a conversation about life. It's about not missing the opportunities. It's about actually preparing. It's about making good choices. It's about being honest and authentic so that when that time comes, which it will, that you are able to go with a smile on your face and with a sense of fulfillment. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I hope that it was enlightening for you. I hope you learned something. I hope that it got you thinking about things. I hope that it got you um, activated and interested and curious about how it is that you're living your life. Are you living it to your fullest? Are you going to get to the end of the wheel and you're going to be okay with what has occurred and what's happened? Or do you need to make some changes right now? Do you need to have some conversations? Do you need to tell somebody that you love them? Do you need to spend time with somebody? Do you need to make an effort? Do you need to apologize? Do you need to tell your kids, one day I'm not going to be here. And let's make sure that you're actually capable of being a great human being, not just a good human being, a great human being. When I'm no longer here to make sure that you are, right? So go live, guys. Go live unencumbered and enjoy it, love on it, don't miss out. And I'm always here for you if you need to have some of this, if you need to like have somebody ask those really tough questions and figure out the answers that are not always cut and dry, not always black and white. I'm here. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this Breath of Life conversation. Join us next week for our Shits and Giggles episode. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one.